Welcome y'all to the Además podcast with your host, Yvonne, public speaking consultant.
And Steph, visibility coach, as we answer all of your public speaking questions every single month.
This is us, juntas beyond the stage.
For context for everybody, I am having a rough day. I feel like I'm all over the place, so it might translate a little bit on today's episode. We shall see.
Nah, that was perfect. That was like the perfect intro. I loved it.
I think it's actually... I was going to say, I think it's actually pretty awesome because literally just before this, we were talking about nerves and how you handle the emotions and all that. So it's kind of like, oh, it's really cool when you get to experience it in real time, as opposed to have to think back to, I don't know, a year ago, like, or a couple months ago. Like, what did it actually feel like? So I feel like now I've got that in my mind. Okay, what happens when you blunder? This is a story that I get to tell on a future episode or whenever somebody has a cool question inside of a podcast interview. So it's been locked and loaded for whenever you stumble or mess up or feel a little bit nervous.
Totally. And I'll give you a specific technique that I give to people whenever I know that you're going to talk about something that can create these emotions in you. Sometimes when we talk about, especially when we're sharing our story, that particular kind of presentation will make you cry, will make you laugh, will make you do all the things. And it kind of does throw you off a little bit, right? So I never recommend to fully memorize your speech, but in those moments, while you're practicing, if you know and understand that the pressure of having people look at me while I'm sharing this particular piece of my story is going to get to me, let me memorize that. Let me actually invest time in memorizing that line so that I can just get through it, feel the emotions, but get through what I actually need to say. That's always been really helpful for me because you kind of you don't give yourself too much time to think about it. You kind of just move through it. Your words allow you to move through it because you've memorized it. You know what's coming next after that. And then once you move past it, you're like, whew, okay, I'm good. I can keep going with my talk.
I love that. That's so cool because it wasn't even planned. That wasn't even like a submitted question. It just kind of like rolled off a little bit based on how we introduced ourselves. Amazing.
All right. We do have 2 questions that we're going to get through today. So the first one is, how do you get more speaking gigs? Also, how do you find them? Basically acquiring speaking engagements. And Steph and I thought it'd be a really cool idea to, instead of giving you general advice, which you can find on either one of our platforms. Steph, you have a new YouTube video out on your channel, Steph Wharton. Is that the username?
That's exactly it. Yes.
Cool. So go check that one out. That's the most recent video, I think, on these more general tips. But we thought it'd be really cool to give you a very specific example of how did I get this particular speaking gig, whether it be the first one, the most recent one, or anywhere in between, and give you a real life example so that you can see how it might be applicable to you everywhere else. Steph, do you want to start us off?
I would love to. I feel like I have a specific example that feels really, really good. And maybe not for the reasons that you think, because it is very recent, so it's top of mind, but I actually didn't get the public speaking opportunity. They said, unfortunately, we're not even moving forward with this entire topic, so we've scrapped it all together. And I was like, oh no, but it was literally so aligned. But
sorry, yes. I'm going to interrupt you so that you can tell us the before that, like before, how did you find this speaking gig and what was the application process like for you? Just so people get a lens of that part of it too.
Oh, 100%.
Sorry, I interrupted.
Oh, no, you're fine. I'm getting I feel like I just had a conversation last week around this, and now I had another call like 2 days ago. So it's just the feelings of excitement through the rejection feels so good that it gets my passion, my excitement rolling, if that even makes sense.
I love that because that's not the norm for a lot of people. Rejection feels icky.
It does. It really, really does. It's even if it's only if you've learned how to navigate the rejection and it's only subtle or brief, it still hurts. Like, we're going to be human beings, right? We have emotions, we have a heart, and yeah, a no, it's still a no. But in any case, the whole thing started because I had found out that there was this event locally, and this was about a year ago, and it was too late to apply. The event was already happening. So I was like, no, okay, it's literally like in a couple weeks, there's no more tickets. There's nothing I can do. So cool. I just noted it in my head. I actually made a note in my visibility tracking sheet, and I was like, this is a cool event to maybe explore in the future. And I did also note that there were two people at this event that I knew that were speaking. So one part of me was super jealous. And the other part of me was like, okay, I know somebody there. Again, noted. That's something that could come in handy. And now, fast forward to, let's say, 6 months after that. So, roughly 6 months ago. And one of the speakers, they were showing up on threads. So they were on social media, they were talking, and they said something that resonated. So I reached out and kind of like rekindled that relationship because we hadn't seen each other in a while. I think they moved away like a couple of years ago in any case. So we started talking, and they ended up tagging somebody else who specializes in something somewhat similar to what I do. And they're like, oh, two should connect. So I was like, amazing. Like, thank you so much. We'll reach out. Never did. And as that happens, right? We don't all have the follow through or the willingness to follow through sometimes when we don't know this random stranger. So I left it. And eventually I got introduced to somebody else. And this time I'm like, okay, like there's too many introductions happening. I'm not following through. Do I want this? Like, do I want to speak at these kind of events? And the answer was yes. So I had to essentially get out of my own way and say, okay, I already said no to connecting to people. This time I'm going to go ahead. So we booked a coffee chat. And I got to meet, basically, they were the MC at that last event, but I hadn't met them before. And we got to socialize. I got to share a little bit about my business. They shared about the event and what it is that they do and how they get involved. And based on how the conversation was organically happening, they're like, oh, wait, like I actually have a perfect idea on how you would be a good fit for this event. We're going to have a panel specifically around visibility, PR, public speaking. Like you would be perfect. Like, I love it. Let's do this. And they gave me a rough idea on the timeline and when I would find out and asked me to apply. So I went ahead through their website. I filled out the application form. I did my pitch and left it. And now a couple months went by. The deadline or the timeline that they had mentioned when we would hear back the speakers, whether we got in or not, passed. And I was like, okay, like maybe they're just busy. And this, I think, is really important because clearly, at least myself, I had said no to a potential connection. Now I have an opportunity to just let it be, right? So it's almost like another no that I'm choosing to say. And I feel like this is an invitation for us to challenge ourselves, to get out of our comfort zone a little bit and reach back out and to follow up with people and to try and connect and really build those relationships. So I checked in and I was like, hey, basically, like, what's going on? In a couple more words than that. And turns out they were no longer involved in this, in selecting the speakers. And they gave me an update. They're like, unfortunately, that topic got scrapped. So I was like, oh no. I'm like, okay, well, I guess that means either you have all your speakers, maybe I'm not even a good fit for the other topics. Who knows? Don't know what the topics are. And there's so many moving pieces on this one. All of a sudden, with that update, they said there's this other opportunity. Instead of as a speaker, you can attend. We'll comp you the ticket. You can be like a content creator, help us like market and like really hype up this event. And I'm like, content creator. I'm like, I'm not a content creator. And I was like, wait, I am. I'm a content creator for myself. Like I create content all the time on so many platforms and I can attend the event. I can network with more people, get to know the speakers, whoever runs the event. This is amazing. And literally the same day I saw on Threads, the person who I had gotten or at least attempted to get introduced to about 6 months ago, they mentioned they needed a content creator for an event, a mysterious event. And I was like, let me reach out. So we had a chat, hit it off as well. And they're like, I want you to be my content creator. I want to hire you for that because I have a completely different vision in mind. And me with like my strategic, like public speaker / visibility brain, I started pitching all these ideas. I'm like, oh, you could do this and that as like a behind the scenes cool series. And like my creative brain was going off. So I ended up booking that. And now I'm going to be attending this event as a content creator with the new MC. And I just feel like it's such a cool way to get out of my comfort zone as a creative, right? To put on a new hat, to meet people in a new way, as opposed to as an attendee, as opposed to as a speaker. Now I'm a content creator. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And okay, so I didn't get the public speaking opportunity, but now I got this whole other thing. And I'm like, That's pretty freaking amazing.
Yeah, that's so cool. And you're getting paid,
Yep.
right? So I think this is it's a great opportunity to be in this space and just connect with everybody, right? One of the things that if maybe you're listening to this and you're like, okay, but I don't create content, challenge yourself to think differently about it, maybe one. But then the other thing is there is so many of these big conferences that, and here's something that I've noticed about conferences that ask you to apply to speak is that they're not often paid, which sucks, right? You do it for visibility, which does not pay the bills. But one of the best ways that I think you can explore potentially getting paid to speak at a larger conference, uh, without your first interaction with them being the application, is going to the event as a volunteer, right? So many of these conferences have volunteer opportunities, so you can go get a feel for it, meet someone. Stuff the sort of theme in your example is networking and connection. And so that is one of the most essential marketing techniques for your public speaking journey. Like, you can apply to all of these speaking engagements, to lead workshops. Oftentimes, again, they're not even paid, which sucks. Sometimes they comp your ticket and sometimes you have to buy the ticket yourself. So it's like, decide whether that is even worth your time. Um, but if that's like you spend majority of your time doing that, but not also speaking to people, to real life people and making these connections, then you're your chances are less high if you do that. Doesn't mean it's impossible to solely go through the speaker application route. It just means that uh, your application of yourself, right, is strengthened when you meet someone that's in the mix. So I love that. I really love that example. Mine is going to be a little bit more, I think, just simple. I think I've talked about my very first keynote engagement, and that was really, I always say, kind of like by chance. Teaching Channel Media Network came to my school, did a whole full segment on some of the students. I was one of the highlighted students. An educator who puts on PBL World, an education-based conference every year, reached out to me, asked me if I wanted to be a keynote. Someone in that audience was hosting a different conference in New Hampshire. They said, hey, Evelyn, do you want to be our keynote speaker? And then from that one, I got another one in some other state. I forgot what state it was. So that, again, highlighting, networking, connection, word of mouth. My most recent one isn't necessarily a speaking engagement where I am on stage speaking. The last one that I did, or actually, I did two in one day. So it was kind of a double, whatever it's called. Remember last time? I killed two birds with one stone. Gosh, I need a
Love
compilation
this.
of how many times I do this throughout the year. So the first one was a workshop with a corporate client that reached out to me, found me on Google, actually. So they were looking for a public speaking coach consultant, and they came across my page and they decided to hire me. But it so happened to be, my world is in the tech world, and someone that works at this particular company I had worked with before somewhere else, and they just so happened to be under the management of this person that was looking for public speaking for their team. So it was, again, connection that kind of just reinforced. They knew about me and my work, and it reinforced this connection that then led to actually getting booked for that gig and consultation. Which from that, that happened on Monday. What day is it today? No, that happened on Tuesday or Wednesday. Oh, I can't remember. But
It
that,
happened this week.
yeah. That was a team workshop. And from that came two other one-on-one sessions that I was booked for these team members. So again, in that moment, to specifically call, how do you get speaking engagements, right? It's one, putting yourself out there and being accessible through the digital footprints, right? For me, it was on Google. And then delivering a workshop, delivering something, the first interaction that someone has with you and you're speaking, being prepared, right? I always say, like, stay ready so you got to get ready type of thing. And that workshop was carefully curated for them. I did my whole questionnaire. I made sure that I was hitting on the points that they needed me to during that workshop so that it didn't feel like I was giving them general information, but they could really see my style of consulting. And then that led to, hey, they had a great experience, and follow-ups for one-on-one consulting. The other one was a networking event at a college campus. I did the end note for it. And the way that that happened was I went to a networking event. It's by an organization called Latinas in Tech. They had a local San Diego meetup. I was familiar with them, with their chapter in San Francisco, but I hadn't even tapped into the network here locally in San Diego. I went to that event. I met one of the directors that was there. We connected. We didn't have any idea of how we would potentially work together. But then she ended up, and this was months ago, right? I think this was sometime last year, ended up having this opportunity to speak and share. She's like, hey, I'm putting this event together. Would you be down to be one of the speakers? I said, yeah. And that's how that happened. And now from that, she's connected to like 10 other college campuses. And she's like, hey, I want to bring you on to this, right? To do this. Highlight of it all is networking and making deep connections with people, which I know all my introverts, we thrive. This is we may not always thrive. We think we don't thrive in those networking spaces, but it's the deepness of the connections that we yearn that actually are going to help us get booked to speak, and even not just speak, but find these other methods of creative expression, right? Like, Steph, I think it's so cool that you're going to be a content creator, and that now forms part of your resume, of your portfolio. And I think it's cool. And who knows, what if you're like, I want to do this, actually, like, this is kind of cool, I want to keep doing this, and that's your thing, right? Or one of the things, in addition to speaking and everything. So cool.
It
Those were
really is. I feel like sometimes we limit ourselves. Like I was actually having a conversation with a client around how to position yourself, especially when you're trying to succinctly tell people what you do. And it's like, okay, fine. There are certain instances where it's maybe important or beneficial to be succinct. Like if you're talking about like an Instagram bio, you only have so many characters, fine. But when it comes to actually having conversations with human beings, you get to really tell a story. So if there is more to you than just being a business owner or a public speaker, and you want to wear more hats or get more creative with what you do, how you get paid, being a content creator, being a bachata instructor, like I might get paid for that soon, which is really freaking cool. And you get to do that, and it doesn't have to be confusing. Like I think we're all so creative and talented and complex, and that gets to be part of our story. It gives more depth and content, and it allows you even to create deeper connections with people. And tying back to your comment about the networking, and for some folks, it might feel harder or more intimidating, or going against the grain of how you like to show up and spend your time and connect with people. I think that networking in itself can sometimes have kind of like that negative, people have a negative relationship with it because of perhaps the networking situations they may have been put in the past that felt a little bit stuffy or off brand, if you will. So it did feel forced and hard and boring, and there was too much pressure to perform and to say the right things and to impress people. But a lot of the networking that we do doesn't look like that. Like I actually do networking every single week. And really what it is, it's attending virtual calls with other entrepreneurs. Sometimes it's a lot of people. Sometimes it's just like 4 or 6 people just hanging out virtually. And the networking that we do in some of these like random sessions, it's talking about what we did over the weekend and how you went on a run and how I was watching some Marvel movie over the weekend. And you get to bond with people through that. And even if you don't become besties, but you're still building relationships on some level. And then folks get to know you more through your content, through other platforms and other methods, that eventually it's like, well, of course I'm going to go hire you because you're freaking hilarious. And you told me that story about the thing that you did over the weekend and how you scaled that mountain and it was the most beautiful views and you were sweating and your hair was a mess. And it's like, well, yeah, Like, I can see through your content that you're amazing. I can see through the networking that you're an amazing human being and that you have personality, charisma, that I vibe with you and we have similar values. So of course I'm going to go ahead and hire you. And that's networking. It's just, to a certain extent, it's making friends. It's just allowing people to
Which is
see a
hard
different
as an
side
adult.
of you. It is
Yeah.
hard as an adult. Yes, it
Yeah.
is.
And I love that because I also have seen a huge shift in networking events, right? You still have those more stale networking events that you go to. And I think that that comes from us as a collective, right? Feeling like there's a certain way that we have to network, or feeling like, or actually as event organizers, not really knowing, not having the experience of facilitating conversations, community, and learning experiences. Because really that's I think it's on the event organizers, like us as event organizers, to say, how am I going to make this a learning experience? How am I going to tap into my creativity, my comm strategy, my um uh, skill set in facilitating conversations and learning to make this networking experience not like the others. So there is that part of it. But I always tell people too, even it's not, you don't have to talk to every single person. And my strategy for networking is always, I'm going to ask you questions because I know that I will find deep interest in something that you say, right? I've learned more often than not that whether it's because we think we have to act this way or because we generally just naturally are this way, so many people love talking, right? And I'm cool with listening because I know that I'm gonna hear you keep talking and talking and talking and talking, and as soon as you say something, I'll be able to attach myself to that and go deeper into that, and that's where our connection will come from. So I like to let people do a lot of the talking, and that is okay. Like I think that there's this assumption that when you go to this networking thing, or you have to be the one always initiating. And yes, like Steph said, challenge yourself if it's something that you really want. I think Steph, something that you did was you said, is this something that I want to do? And your answer was yes. Okay, great. So now you have to go and actually get it, do the work to go get it. If you are at a networking event, just casually meeting people, be okay with it being casual, right? It's okay if it doesn't end up being this larger than life thing or land something. Take a little bit of that pressure off of that and just go to see what comes of it.
Yeah, that literally, it sparked this entire tangent for me in my brain because I think that's another thing that folks hate about networking. I've heard this so many times, and it's the fact that they will show up, whether it's virtually in person, and everything feels so strategic in like a bad way, where it's like, oh, am I being pitched to like left, right, and center? Like, can we not just get to know each other? Like, even if the intent, if the goal for everybody is to get hired for something, to book some sort of collaboration opportunity, a public speaking opportunity, sure. But you get to do that in a way that feels a little bit less forced. So it's more genuine, where it's led by conversation on more broader subjects, or not broader, but let's say subjects that are not so specifically like, hey, this is what I do and I'm looking for
Like real
XYZ.
strategic. Yeah.
Say it again.
Like real strategic.
Yeah, where it's like, okay, like if that's what it's going to be, then why are we actually hiring each other? Why are we collaborating? Is it just so that one of us gets paid, or is it just like a trade? Or is there an actual reason? Like, we both deeply care about something, like you said, where you hear something and you're going to catch onto that, you're going to latch onto it. And that's how you're going to start to feel that connection and build on that conversation and really build that relationship. Or is it just going to be transactional and then you'll never talk again? I don't,
Yeah.
at least for me, I don't want that. If I'm going to collaborate or hire somebody, I want it to be somebody that hopefully, it doesn't have to happen this way, but hopefully it's going to be longer lasting, even if it's only going to be on a friendship level. But hey, if it's longer lasting and there's more opportunities down the road, even better. But again,
Yeah.
that
Totally.
relationship, it's got to be there for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you decide, because when you go to a networking event, I'll take the example of this last one that I went to where it was industry professionals and college students. There is a specific outcome. There is a specific ask and in return that you would like. It is okay to also be straightforward in that capacity, right? And it doesn't mean that you take the human out of it. It doesn't mean that you take the connection and relationship out of it. It just is, hey, we know that we're in this space to give and receive. So here's what I can give to you, and here's what I would like to receive, whether it be in exchange or whether it be if you know someone that can help me in this way. So it's something that I learned is that especially as an introvert that struggles with this small talk, um, at the end of the day, it is also important for me to have a clear ask and an offer. So I'm so that I don't feel like I am just going in there and taking from people. That is really important to me when I'm networking. I don't want to feel like I'm just taking from this space in this community and not contributing anything in return. So if I ask something of you, if I say, hey, I can offer you public speaking workshops. In return, I'd love to tap into your network and see if there's anybody that's interested. Hey, I have connections in the tech industry. I am happy to connect you to folks in the tech industry. And in return, I'd love to know if your organization is looking for a public speaking consultant or something. It is okay to ask and receive during networking events, because at the end of the day, y'all know what you're there to do, right? This layer of relationship building is the foundation, right? Is the foundation for really great partnerships to come of them. So be straightforward, but also be human and be open to these deeper relationships, because that's what leads to you getting paid if that's what your desired outcome is, right?
Yeah.
And it's not to say it. I don't think it's a bad thing to say, oh yeah, at the end of the day, I would like to get paid to speak, right? This topic that we're talking about, right? For our
Yeah.
podcast, like I would like to get paid to speak, and I also value this relationship and friendship. And if nothing else comes of it, at least we're cool with each other, right? At least I have a friend now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, go for
I,
it.
I think that's the key though. Like you paired it perfectly where you get to find the balance between building that authentic relationship and being bold and confident enough to ask for what it is that you want. But when you have the pairing, then you have that relationship at a minimum. Like you said, you get to walk away with that. Whereas if you don't have the relationship or you're not at least trying to build that, then it creates a kind of awkward vibe where it's like, if it's not a good fit, you're like, okay, no. And then, yeah, you literally never talk to each other. So it's like, okay, fine. I didn't get what I wanted if you're the one going in with that goal and that mission. But you could have used that. That could have been a longer term relationship that, hey, could have led to something else in the future. So it's like just pairing the both is so perfect. It's like you get to have both. You get to have the relationships and you get to be bold and put yourself out there.
Yeah, totally. Um, and just to close this one off, you have something to offer, right? It's not like I think for especially, I don't know, I think as Latinas, we're always like, no, it's okay. I'm not going to take, I don't want to take. I'm just going to give, give, give and continue to give. Right. But then when we get into these networking spaces, I'm just going to offer everything right away. It is okay for you to receive as well. That's actually an act of love for you to receive this as well. And so if you think about it from that lens, I think it makes the concept of networking a little less scary.
I know a lot of Latinas need to hear that. So that was beautiful.
So
Next question.
this is a yes or no question. I'm just kidding.
It is though.
Yeah, it's like, do you need to be certified as a speaker? I think it depends on a lot of different things. I don't think you need to be certified as a speaker. I'll give my lens, and then Steph, you can add your lens as well. My lens is that it depends on the kind of speaking that you want to be doing. If you're on stages, you don't need to be a certified speaker. I always encourage people to really master their technique in speaking, because that's what's going to make you internally feel stable and confident in your approach. And we can always be in a continuous loop of learning and bettering ourselves as speakers. You don't need to be a certified speaker to go on stage. I think you just need to consistently be practicing, and trying to do it well each and every time. It also depends on the kinds of speaking that you're doing, right? There's a kind of speaking where you're on stage and you're sharing a unique perspective, but then there's also the kind of speaking where you are leading workshops. I don't think that you necessarily need to be certified in speaking to lead workshops, but I do think that there is some level of certification, or not certification, but just like some level of expertise and knowledge that you should have about crafting and curating learning experiences, because those are very different, right? The techniques used for speaking on stage is very different from leading a workshop. And a workshop is not just about you talking, a workshop is about actually helping navigate people through a certain learning, right? So you don't need to be certified as a speaker to be paid. I mean, my first speaking engagements, I was in high school and I got paid
You
for
were
it.
definitely
So,
not certified. Yeah.
and I was not certified, right? I went on to college, and yeah, I did my bachelor's, and then I got my master's, and all of that added to who I am now as a speaker, but I didn't need to be certified to speak to land that first speaking engagement.
Yeah, no, I think what you shared is very interesting, especially from like the workshop standpoint. It also makes me think there's two bits there. There's ability to facilitate that experience, facilitate the learning, etc. So it's your ability to teach. So you have to be
Mhm.
an educator. Like that is a skill in itself. And then you have to know and embody what it is that you're teaching, because there's so many people in the online space in particular where you will learn one thing and then turn around and then teach it yourself, and it's like, wait a minute, just because you know something, like you can't just copy a textbook, right? Like it's that kind of practice. It's almost like when you go to school, you read a textbook, you write a test, and then you pass and you walk away and you don't remember any of it, or you have no idea what you're doing. It's just like,
Hell no, no. I was like, you can't teach something that you are not actively doing yourself. Like, it would be crazy for me to say, hey, I can teach you how to be a great public speaker and book speaking engagements that like 6-figure, 5-figure speaking engagements if I'm not doing that myself. I'm like, I can't, like, that would be wild for me to do, for me to attempt to do that, you know?
the only caveat I'm going to say, and I'm not saying you said this, um, is it depends which one you're trying to do. If you're marketing, hey, I will help you book, let's say, 6-figure speaking engagements, and you haven't done that yourself, that I feel like is a little bit wonky. But that doesn't mean that you can't help somebody book 6 figures speaking engagements if you haven't yet done it
True,
yourself, because you have the skill
true.
to book the speaking engagement. So if they charge more than you, or they find a bigger opportunity, hey.
No, totally, 100%, right? And it's like, my thing is the actual learning and the skill sets of public speaking. I don't think I would tell people, hey, I'm going to book you a 5,000, 6,000, 10K speaking engagement. That's not the promise that I make. The promise that I make is that you're going to deliver a speech that is worth 10K and up.
That is
That's
worth
like
six
my,
figures.
that's exactly, no, that's my thing. And I have the experience in being able to do that, right?
Hmm.
And so to your point of like, I was joking one day when I went live on TikTok, and this was over the course of like 5 months. I have $15 in my account. And on Threads I had posted something of like, hey y'all, I just made $15 on TikTok. Welcome to my course on how to monetize on social media. Right? Like,
Yes.
that's the kind of level where I'm like, okay, that you don't need to be certified in monetization of social media to help other people or to teach people how to do it necessarily, but it's also about like integrity. Like, how am I going to say, oh, I can help you monetize when it's like $15?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's something that you have to like truly embody. You have to do it. You have to be able to really understand it on your own terms, as opposed to regurgitate something else that you may have seen online or in person, whatever. Yeah. So it's that ability to teach, but also to deeply know and understand what it is that you're teaching. I feel like that's just beautiful. And yeah, when it comes to marketing, as long as you are ethically marketing what it is that you're speaking on, then you can, in essence, speak about anything, because then people are getting exactly what they thought they were signing up for. If they're attending an event and they're paying for tickets, or even if they're just paying with their time, I think that's so important too, is to be able to communicate like, what's your actual talk? Because I see so many talks that with the title alone, and sometimes there's no description, and I'm like, so what is being taught, or like what's being shared in this instance? Because that title's
Mm,
broad. Like it could be literally anything. And for people to now show up and think they're going to learn one thing because they're assuming, of course, because they have no context, and then learn something entirely different, that can be very jarring, disappointing, where it's like, okay, well, I just wasted the last half hour. And I feel like it's like, you don't need the certification. You just need to be able to communicate properly. You need to be able to know how to share your story and market that adequately. And I feel like that's so much more important than
Yeah.
being like, oh, I need this licensing or this certification in
Yeah.
order to even be allowed on a stage to begin with.
Yeah. And have it like be of substance. There's all these words that, especially as motivational speakers that we can use, but think about what is the message that you want to convey, and truthfully sit with yourself and say, how much of my time have I invested in practicing this, in really nurturing myself as a speaker and my skill set as a speaker? And where are my areas for growth? Right? Am I just kind of am I using the speaking engagement itself, like being on the stage, as the tool for continuing to grow, which is a great tool in and of itself, right? Every speaking engagement that you have where you maybe have the same talk is helping you get better at that particular talk, right? So don't let the certification, do I need a certification or do I need more knowledge? I think us as women do this a lot where we're like,
Yes.
I need to know more in order to do this. And we have mediocre people everywhere else being like, oh yeah, I did this once, I'm gonna talk about it, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
there needs to be a little bit of a balance. So you don't need a certification to start speaking. Do not let the barrier of I need to learn more, I need to do more, stop you from actually going for it. It's just like, once you are there, assess where you are in your speaking and say, do I want to focus in on this particular aspect of storytelling, right? Do I want to focus in on, I noticed I use a lot of filler words. How can I practice that? Right?
Guilty.
Like, these are the kinds of things that matter. These are the things that matter in your journey as a speaker, not the certification, but more so the almost like being a lifelong student of your own speaking journey, constantly studying yourself, refining it, and just having like a deep care for the art. I could talk about this for days and I nerd out about it, but to me, I have such a love and care for the art of public speaking that makes me really invest my time, even in myself as a speaker, to say, how can I continue to improve? How can I continue to show this art that I love it, that it is, that I nurture it, that I'm going to also elevate it and be on many different stages doing right by it. I know it's so weird to think about public speaking in that way, but to me, it truly is an art that deserves kind of this love and uh, just beautiful approach to it.
Absolutely. Now, the question is, was that a yes or no question? Because I think
I think it's no. In short, if you didn't listen to anything else, no, you don't need a
you
certification.
don't. But
And by now you should
clearly,
know. And by
yeah.
now you should definitely know that Steph and I, whether you give us a yes or no question, we're going to take it there.
Yeah. If not at first, we'll get there eventually, where it's just, it adds and adds and more thoughts and more perspectives and more tangents. And it's just, it's true. Like with everything, I feel like even if something is so clearly yes or no, there's just so many nuances and so many if and or buts that give it more context. And it's just like, it gives you this fresh, I don't know, insight and almost like appreciation, like almost it gives you this ability to feel more certain behind something because you know it inside and out, like the answer as to whether you need to be certified or not, that it's just like, okay, now I have no doubts. There's just no hesitation. I know it without a shadow of a doubt that I do not need to be certified, and now you can move forward more confidently. So I guess we'll give you that confidence.
Yeah. And I think that's all that we have for today as far as today's questions. We touched on a lot of different topics. So if you would all have any questions, you, the viewer tuning in, please ask us. I think the more specific you get, the better we can answer your question. If you would like to just know more about us as speakers, or again, I always say this, like the funny moments, oh, I messed up that one time, we will share those things. We just want you to ask us because we want this podcast to be a space where you get your questions answered.
Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody.
Bye, y'all.